I heard that you want to start reading the Bible. Firstly, let me say I'm so excited that you are. Reading the Bible is such an important step in your journey of faith, whether you identify as Christian, curious, or even skeptical. I've dedicated my life to teaching the Bible, and so far I've got 2 Bible degrees, multiple published works, and a couple years of teaching experience to prove it. So I'd be honored to give you a crash course in the Bible before you begin. Here's everything I'll cover in the video today. One of the single most helpful facts to know about the Bible before you start reading is that it's not a storybook. It's a sacred anthology. This means that the Bible is a compilation of various texts with the highest form of spiritual significance. There are a couple different types of Bibles, depending on what branch of Christianity you're practicing. The Protestant Bible is the one that is typically used in the tradition that I was raised and trained in, so it's the one I'm going to cover today. But if you'd like to look up other Bibles, Catholic and Orthodox Bibles are a great next step. The Bible is laid out in 2 testaments, the Old Testament, sometimes called the Hebrew Bible, and the New Testament. These testaments are filled with books. In total, there are 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New. These books are not written in chronological order, except that all the Old Testament books come before all of the New Testament ones. And each book is broken down into chapters and verses. So when people talk about passages in the Bible, they will do so by referring to the book, chapter, and verse. So for example, if I said, my favorite Bible verse is Isaiah 43, verses 18 and 19, this would mean you could find my favorite Bible verse in the Old Testament, where the book of Isaiah is, in the 43rd chapter of that book, and in verses 18 and 19. All of the books of the Old Testament were originally written in Hebrew, while the New Testament was majority Greek and a little bit of Aramaic. Since the canonization, or establishment of the Bible as a sacred text, it has been translated into hundreds of languages for communities all around the world. The original texts were written almost entirely by men or scribal communities made of men. And considering the Old Testament books, these were oral histories and particular worldviews typically written down in the decades and centuries following the events of the books. The New Testament books were written in the years and decades following the events, and in some cases even reflect real-time ideas. Regardless, the biblical text always portrays events and perspectives of its writers and provide us with just a snapshot of the worldview and faith expression of the time. The makeup of the Bible can be broken down numerous ways. Here's how I do it. The Old Testament's 39 books span the genres of law, history, narrative, poetry, wisdom, and prophecy. The New Testament's 27 books span the genres of Gospels, Acts, epistles, letters, and apocalyptic literature. These are just some of the general genre categorizations. There are several micro-genres also present in the biblical text, things like court comedy, horror, lamentations, etc. If you're interested in the makeup of the Bible and how we got the books that we have, look up things like reception history, canonization of the Bible, and translation history. There's a whole world of rabbit holes for you to explore. The events of the Old Testament are set in the ancient Near East, which is an area of land spanning Mesopotamia to Egypt. The people of the Old Testament represent the ethnic diversity of the ancient Near East during this time. You will find stories of people with Middle Eastern, African, and Mediterranean descent. The events of the New Testament cover a period of time during the Roman colonization of Palestine, which introduces a European population to the text, but for the most part, the people of the New Testament remain the people of Palestine and its surrounding lands. One important thing to note is the difference between the biblical nation of Israel and the modern-day nation of Israel. Not only do these 2 nations have a notably different ethnic makeup, meaning they aren't even the same people, they operate in the world from a completely different vantage point. The biblical Israelites were a small minority nation, and apart from brief moments in their national history, they were not the top dogs of the ancient Near East by any means. It's clear, when you read the Bible, that the 1948 nation of Israel cannot be conflated with the biblical Israelites. There are commonalities, of course, mainly locations, and certainly there are ethnically Palestinian people living on that land today, but the nation states themselves are not the same. If you'd like more information on this topic, look up things like biblical Israelites versus modern day Israel in Palestinian Jewish history. Now that we've done a brief overview of what the Bible is, let's talk about what the Bible is for. Now, there are many different opinions on this topic, so I will be as upfront as I can be about the perspective from which I answer this question. I believe that the Bible is a tool, specifically purposed by God to teach us and motivate us to act in accordance with grace and truth. Because this is what I think the Bible is, I come to the Bible believing in its ability to teach me. I read the Bible for consciousness raising, edification, encouragement, and comfort. I don't read it for historicity, answers to all my existential questions, or justification for my actions. I often fall back on Hebrews 4:12 and choose to follow what the Bible says about itself, that it is useful and profitable, even when it's hard. Every person, whether consciously or subconsciously, reads the Bible from a specific belief of what the Bible is and what it's for. If you don't think the Bible has any spiritual significance, for example, you aren't likely to read it, expecting it to speak meaningfully into your lived experience. In these conditions, the Bible is an intellectual exercise at best and, decoration at worst. What you believe about the Bible is entirely your choice. But if you decided you want to read it, I encourage you to think critically about what you think it is, whether you're open to that belief ever changing, and then read with honesty and integrity. Being able to verbalize this will help guide your reading and any conversations you may have. My last piece of advice before you start reading are 2 notes on how to read the Bible. Number 1, there are many ways to read the Bible. So many ways it's actually easier to tell you the wrong ways to read. Those ways would include any and all methods and interpretations that are harmful to yourself or others, those that lack justification from the Bible itself, and those methods that claim to be the only correct ones. Otherwise, reading the Bible is an exploration as vast as people are. Try to enjoy it. You don't have to like everything you read or agree with every perspective shown in the text. Just like methods of reading the Bible itself is as diverse as people are. That diversity is reflected in the stories, worldviews, and faith expressions written about in the text. So, unless you've gotten along with every person you've ever met and ever will meet, don't expect to like everything you read. But more importantly, don't let reading something you don't like stop you completely. Number 2, don't be afraid to ask questions. Be cautious who you ask. Reading the Bible is not a solitary practice. It's something that should be shared amongst a trusted, beloved community. It's a personal experience, and therefore you should be careful who you allow to witness and speak into that journey. But definitely somebody should. Now that you have the basics down, you're ready to dive into the world of the Bible. As for where you should begin wherever you want. Pick a genre, a historical moment, a theme or topic, a person. Read chronologically. Ask someone who knows the Bible and knows you for a tailored recommendation. It doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you start, and that you know there's at least one person praying for you as you go. And remember, Academy to Table is always here with free Bible studies and Bible lessons if you need some help along the way. I'm so excited to welcome you to this journey of learning, critical thinking, and spiritual exploration. I wholeheartedly believe if you open the scriptures in search of the Lord, it is the Lord you will find. Good luck.